Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in today. I am so excited um, to have Dr. Marni in the studio today. Happy Wednesday to everyone, and I tell you, this young lady has been very busy. Um, she's an extraordinary woman. She's learned the art of self motivation, perseverance, and turning lemons into lemonade. I mean, that is big for me. Thank you so much, Dr. Marni, for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on here. I'm so glad that we're connecting.
Absolutely. Now, Dr. Marni, I understand that you are an award winning author, an educator, a speaker. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah. But I'm
And
just also an everyday person.
I was going to
Like,
say,
yeah.
you, with all those titles, you have been one of the most laid back, down to earth people that I've actually had on my show to interview. And I
Oh,
appreciate it. Initially, I was like, okay, I didn't know what to expect because you never know. You never
sure.
know. But I will say you have been awesome, very easy and laid back to talk to. So I'm so interested in finding out a lot more about you. So now, if you don't mind, I have to toot your horn a little bit because you deserve it and you've been very busy. So you have a large resume. So I'm going to actually read it because I don't want to leave anything out, and hopefully I don't. Okay, you've earned your doctorate in education from Northern Illinois University, and you've completed your postdoctoral studies at Harvard. After a very successful and rewarding 35-year career as a high school special education teacher, which is big. Those are
Mhm,
special children. I mean,
mhm.
special children. Because I worked in the school industry before, and I education, and I tell you, those are special children, and they just love unconditionally, I would
Mhm.
say. You also you had 12 years as a university adjunct graduate school professor, um, and you've written many books. Did I leave anything out?
Well, I'm a loving mom to two beautiful adult children.
Okay, you have to be a mom because your personality has mom written all over it. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
and like I said, you've been very busy. Now, Dr. Marni, let's just go ahead and get into your story because I'm so excited and I'm intrigued about some of the things and hurdles you've had to overcome. I understand that you're bringing a lot of education and experience to my flat platform, and I didn't realize you were a mom, but I'm not surprised at all. But I also understand that you've experienced what you called trauma induced STEs. Can you explain to us so we can follow your story along? What is an STE? I want to be clear about that.
Yeah, an STE is a spiritually transformative experience, and
Mm-hmm.
it is very similar to a near death experience, except I didn't have to flatline. So,
Okay.
and it's trauma induced because I had gone through a life changing traumatic situation that just rocked my world. And, when you are in such challenging situations, it's an opportunity to reflect on where you've been, where you are, where you want to be, who you want to surround yourself with. So it's a life-changing situation. So I actually had these trauma induced spiritual experiences at a garage sale, and it prompted me to really do a lot of research into what these are, because I didn't know what they were either. But they're
Okay.
spiritual miracles that really can't be explained just by our ordinary, human language. They're
Mm-hmm.
otherworldly, and I'm someone who actually has an atheist background,
Mm-hmm. I did
and
read that. Yes.
yeah, and so I'm someone who really needs proof and evidence before I'm going to believe some of the things, that I actually experienced. And if
Mm-hmm.
I didn't experience them myself, I might not have actually believed that this
Okay.
could happen to people here on earth. But just it's a wonderful thing. It's a wonderful thing to pay attention to signs and synchronicities that we might chalk up to coincidences, and oh, isn't that neat, or the timing of that was pretty amazing, when really, if you've had enough of these, and then done the research to realize that this is a phenomenon that is happening to thousands and thousands of people.
Mhm.
We're just now getting to the point where we're having the strength and courage to talk about it and to
Mhm.
realize that we're not alone, and that we can rise above even all challenges, negative
Mhm.
challenges. We can rise above them by staying true to our values and following our gut intuition to realize that, we are on a journey and there is a path, and sometimes there are hills and sometimes there's valleys.
Mhm. I agree, and I think as just a human being, we all understand that because
Sure.
we all, if we could have it our way, we want to just kind of go through this life perfect with nothing happening, nothing kind of roadblocks going into our way. You know, me myself, I often speak of it that I lost my oldest daughter in 2019 due to domestic violence, and you couldn't have told me in a million years that that would have ever happened to me. And when things happen, it does change. It changes your outlook on the world itself. So it's forever changed my life.
Right. And I am so sorry for your loss. And there are so
Thank
many
you.
wonderful parents that have lost their children,
Hmm.
whether it's in the physical or whether it's due to parental alienation, where they're
Right.
not in your lives
I
because of
agree.
domestic violence. And so, bringing awareness to this is very important, not only for the targeted loving parents or the grieving parents, but also for these children or for
Hmm.
children everywhere that, realize that, they might be in a situation that is not really reality, that the
Right.
truth eventually, comes out with most situations. Sometimes it takes longer than others, but it's good that we're having these candid conversations so that
I
our
agree.
voices are heard, and we're providing hope and inspiration to people everywhere, that, we can control some things, but then there's some things we can't control, and we have to be able to live with ourselves and the choices that we make.
What things did you use? What different tasks and approaches did you use to survive these different things that you've had to deal with in your life? Did you, because I know you stated one time you weren't coming from an atheist background, but I assume
Mhm.
you said were, so I'm assuming that's no longer the case.
Right,
So
right.
these things, of course, in your studies and different things that you research help you to change. And how did you kind of push your way through to the other side?
Well, what a great question. And yes, my faith in God and spirituality has definitely played a very important role in my healing journey, and my
Mhm,
knowing that
mhm.
there are some bigger things going on in the world that are of a divine nature, that um, can help you understand and come to terms with that sometimes bad things happen to good people. Sometimes
Absolutely.
there are devastating challenges and losses that,
Mhm.
without some sort of faith, would be very difficult to be able to put one foot in front of the other and carry on.
I can attest to that.
I'm sure you can.
Dr. Marnie, can you explain to me how did you get through some of the different challenges you had to experience?
Well, that's a really good question. And, because it was hard, it was very shocking and challenging to find myself in some of the situations that I was in. But I think a big part of understanding what you're going through is doing some self reflection work.
Mhm.
Going back to your own family of origin and kind of understanding your foundation, the patterns that you bring to your adulthood with, that kind of make you an overgiver or a people pleaser, or someone that doesn't have strong enough boundaries to realize that, when something is unhealthy or even abusive, to say no, 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 enough is enough. So I think the self-reflection work to find out your role in the situation is very important. It doesn't mean that you're responsible at all for the harm that someone else causes you, but, just to sort of understand what got you there in the first place.
Right.
um but then also another big component that I am have always done. I'm a lifelong learner, and I just want to learn about things. So when
Mhm.
I found myself, realizing that parental alienation was part of my domestic violence, I didn't even know what parental alienation was. This was a foreign concept to me.
Mhm.
I just believe because I was good person and I had good values and was honest and thought the best of others, that other
Mhm.
people I surrounded myself with had those same values, when really that's not the
That's not the
case.
case, right?
Yeah, there are some people that are just malevolent individuals. They're out to destroy others. They want to undermine and put people down to try to build themselves up. And I had to learn about those type of personality types and understand some of these terms and phrases. Like, for
Mhm.
example, narcissist or word salad or manipulation or gray rocking or no contact. I mean, I didn't know any of these terms. And when you learn the terms, that can help provide some structure and organization for you to look up
Mhm.
these terms and connect the dots to your own experience. And so research, doing that inner work, but then also the research, has what really helped me get through these challenging situations and emotions, and just where I found myself. And then I ended up taking that drive for learning and
Mhm.
writing a 5-book series called True Deceit, False Love, where I address these things.
Right, and exactly. I want to ask you about that in a moment, but what I wanted to kind of stay right here where we are for a quick second.
Yeah.
I want to be a little intrusive because I'm trying. Do you think, in your own personal and professional opinion, do you think sometimes it's very difficult for people to identify that they have uh, that there's an issue
Oh
with
yeah.
them,
Yes.
but they notice that these things just keep happening, different relationships, different things keep perpetuating itself. You may have come from a stable background, sometimes I'm assuming, but you may attract certain type of behaviors and people don't, it's hard to identify. Do you find that sometimes?
Absolutely. In fact, that's why they say people ignore red flags.
Mhm.
Whenever they talk about red flags, which are, the signs that
Mhm.
something is unhealthy or abusive or something just doesn't seem right. You've got
Right.
cognitive dissonance. You need to realize that you might be trauma bonded with someone. But yes, I think it's very, very common for people to ignore these red flags. And actually, when we're in the midst of an abusive or toxic or unhealthy situation, we could be coping in so many different ways. And when you think about the stages of grief, denial is part of that. And I think we are in denial a lot. We don't want to see what we saw. We don't
Right.
want to realize that something or a relationship that we've committed many, many years to is not
Mhm.
really based on the same values that you thought they were. It's very painful when you know you just want to think, okay, it's going to get better, or they
Right.
didn't really mean that, or if I only do this, if I change this, if I change that, then it'll get better. So I think it's very, very common, and then because of that, people find themselves repeating um,
Mhm.
these
Right.
same patterns, getting back into an abusive relationship
Unhealthy.
after leaving one. Yeah.
Mhm. Do you think, that for some people, the reason that they just kinda sometimes feel like these are the type of people that I'm gonna attract in my life, and they just sometimes just try to they wanna break out, but they can't? What are some of the steps you think someone should take as like a first step to saying, "Okay, this is unhealthy. This is something I definitely," because a lot of times, just say from a woman's standpoint, and if you have children, it doesn't just impact you, it impacts your children as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I think that's another great question, because you know, really, we are in denial so many times. We want the best for ourselves and for our,
Mhm.
other situations. And what I would recommend if someone thinks they might be in that situation is take some time with yourself and
I
just
agree.
slow down and just
Mm.
reflect on your relationships. If you're someone who needs a little more structure to help do that, pull out a sheet of paper and put yourself in the middle, and
Mhm.
make note of the names or the people that you surround yourself with, and analyze each relationship and see
Mhm.
whether it
Mhm.
is of mutual respect or if it's really not a balanced situation. And that can be very hard to actually acknowledge, especially if some of these people in your circle are family members, and
Mm.
um, you just don't want, you want everything to just be fine and everyone to get along and
You're a
everything to,
giver. Yeah.
yeah, but at the same time you have to come to the realization sometimes that not all relationships are meant for a lifetime, and not all relationships are healthy for you.
Right.
And so to take some time and reflect on your own. And then I'm just a big believer in seeking out, you know, knowledge, seeking out
Mhm.
information. Check
Mhm.
into your podcast and other wonderful podcasts. Read some books, check out
Mhm.
some literature on toxic and unhealthy or abusive situations to see if you can connect the dots to your own experience. And then of course, as I mentioned before, you have to do that self-reflection work. You
Mhm.
really have to understand yourself, and in
Right.
doing so you can get stronger and stronger, and you can let go of some of the fear and the trauma bonding,
Mhm.
and realize, you might have been gaslit for many, many years. And this can happen to very capable, intelligent people, because they find themselves questioning their worth, their abilities,
Mhm.
because of a skilled manipulator. They're very skilled
Mhm.
doing that,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
seek out, you're actually a chosen person when you're in this
I
situation.
I I've seen that. Yes. I agree
Yeah,
with
they
that.
they pick people,
For low self-esteem.
but that have it all together in many ways,
Mhm.
and because they can, or someone that has gone through a recent trauma or something like that,
Mhm.
because then you're very open to connecting with them, and not seeing that they could be just projecting, they could be mirroring, love bombing you, they could
Mhm.
be filling you with an earful of lies, and
Mhm.
eventually the truth will come out, but
Mhm.
sometimes it's years and years after, when their
Right.
mask slips and you start to realize who you're really dealing with.
Now we know from an adult perspective, it's we can use those techniques to kind of hopefully heal ourselves, right? But what about from a child, a young adult, a teenager? Um, is there it is it better for them to take a different approach because they don't have all the worldly skills and knowledge, most times education, especially if it's a young child and they're acting out in school. Do you think that could be perpetuating because of dysfunctionality?
Oh, sure. There's a lot of, common threads to, how children react, to
Mhm.
their environment, to their situation. And I think, yeah, everyone handles things differently, not only just with their age, but, the role that they are in,
Mhm.
as well as their experience with
Right.
handling other, situations. So we're all at varying levels. I just think that I'm just a big believer that honesty is very important.
Mhm.
I know that children, young and adult children, they don't want the drama. They don't want the heartache, the chaos.
Right.
They want, peace and harmony. And I think it's so important to try to, with children, build up their self-worth. I mean, as a teacher for 35 years at the high school level, I mean, one of the things I'm most proud of is just helping these young adults feel good about themselves.
Mhm.
And the learning will come, but just to try to encourage the love of learning,
Mhm.
and but to feel okay about themselves, because I think you need that foundation before you can, really make some larger analytical, moves in your life.
Do you think sometimes environmental factors like economics and things of that nature has a big impact on a person's self-worth, because I've seen mixture. I've seen people that come from not so fortunate backgrounds and they turn out to be very successful.
Mhm.
And then you have children that get it all and they're just brats and terrible.
Right, right.
Very concerning people. So do you think it really matters about the you know how they say a lot of times it's very difficult to have self-esteem when your life is surrounded by so much chaos. But then you have these children that come from a well-established, well-rounded environment and they still have low self-esteem.
Well,
Why is
sure. I don't think that, those factors are, the main contributing
Mhm.
factor to how we feel about ourselves and how we interact with others. I think no matter what your background, if you were shown love and you were brought up with love,
Mhm.
and hopefully at least one of your parents would encourage independence and having you try to solve some issues on your own and try to feel worth on your own.
Mhm.
I think, the generation of kids today, so many of them would get all these awards for just participating,
Mhm.
as opposed to achieving and striving to be
Mm.
the best that they could be. Just for participating, they get a huge trophy, and then they
Yeah.
they they might get like an inflated self sense,
Mhm.
when really, um, they didn't work hard for it. And then you might have some parents that undermine parents. Like I know when my children were growing up, I wanted them to clean their rooms, to be responsible, to have
Mhm.
jobs, to, you know,
Mhm.
um, uh, you know, be independent. And that was sabotaged constantly. Oh,
Yes.
don't listen to your mother. You don't need to
Exactly.
do that. I'll just give you this, this, and this. You don't
Mhm.
you don't have to work for it.
Mhm.
I mean, so it's very hard when you're in a situation where, you're not on the same page with someone. And I think kids learn about that, and then they
Mhm.
know how to play either parent. But I think that, in general, we can realize that there are a lot of things we can't control, and there are a lot of influencing factors that are not within our control, especially the older that the kids get.
Mhm.
I mean, some of
Mhm.
the when I chose to divorce my now ex-husband after 27 years, my kids were 20 and 23 at the time.
Mhm.
You think that they would, not fall into this brainwashing abuse
Mhm.
of parental alienation and cut off their loving mom,
Mhm.
but they are influenced by a
Mhm.
skilled alienator. But then the alienator also gets other people involved, kind of like a regime. And so, you know,
Mhm.
there's a smear campaign that goes on, and that really can influence. And
Okay.
then,
Yeah.
with my children, just like other people's children, there are negative influences. There are people that will, encourage them to do very immoral, unethical things,
Mhm.
and really foreign to what you tried to instill. and
Yeah.
and at some point when they're adults, there's only so much you can do.
And
And
I agree with that.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah, I mean, you try as a parent and you can only give the things that you know to children, um, and to yourself really, and what I always have this saying, if I've given you 100% of me, that's all I have left. You know
yeah,
what I'm saying? If I've done my best, that's all I could do. And so that gives me comfort in knowing if I'm a good mom, if I know I'm giving you all I can, then I can sleep at night. So when you go out, if you
yeah.
make the wrong choices, then it's not on me. It's definitely on you.
Right. And that's a very healthy way to look at it. And,
Mhm.
even though I haven't had my children in my life the way
Mhm.
that they were for almost a decade now,
Oh
I'm
wow.
still
Okay.
continuing to role model being the
Mhm.
loving, wonderful mom that I always was. I'm
Mhm.
staying true to my values of honesty and of
Right.
love and compassion and forgiveness and goodness and awareness and learning.
Mhm.
And, that's the best I can do.
That's it.
I can only do so much and hope that, you know, just like my light bulb went on after many, many years, hopefully their
Right.
light bulb will go on
Mhm.
and the truth will be revealed and you know, then they'll understand a little bit more of how they've been victimized actually.
Right. And that is in a sense, pretty much that's what it is. They become victimized because someone wants to have that control and they're
Yeah.
not woke enough,
Mhm.
to really see the light. So you kind of
Mhm.
hope, Lord, I kind of look at it, well, Lord, I only get one time around this train, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So even with the situation that happened with my daughter, her and I were very close, very,
Yeah.
very close. I mean, very close. And did we always agree? No, but she knew at the end of the day, I loved her
Oh,
and
sure.
I'm a firm mom. I'm the same way with my children and
Mhm.
grandchildren, but at the end of the day, something goes down, I have your back. So that's what gave me a little peace dealing with it or whatever you would like to call it, because I know while she was here, I gave her flowers. So
Yeah.
that gives me peace. I don't have any regrets. And that's all you can do. So now answer this for me. Universal signs, the universe's signs. What do you mean by that? And how are you applying
That's a really good question. And I'll tell you, if some of these things did not happen to me directly, I
that?
would not have really readily believed it.
Mm-hmm.
But for example, when I had lost everything, I when I chose to file for divorce, I had no idea the repercussions would involve
Mm-hmm.
losing a home to foreclosure I thought was paid off for 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
losing my assets, my money, my support system, friends,
Mm-hmm.
family, and neighbors. I mean, just the losses are significant.
Mm-hmm.
But even with all of that, when I had to have this big garage sale, I was filled with love and gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just in, just a feeling of thankfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I was experiencing trauma, like shock and trauma at the
Oh
same
yeah,
time.
I can imagine. Mm-hmm.
But some of the signs and synchronicities started out. One of the earlier ones was I was looking back at my home again with a positive feelings, and I was surrounded by a dragonfly, and then five, and then 100. 50 to 100 dragonflies were circling me,
Oh
and
wow.
and I was just in a state of awe.
Mhm.
It was almost like I was kind of having an out of
Out of
body
body. I
experience.
was gonna say that.
It really was, and I'll tell you why. Because normally I am bug phobic, and if
Uh-huh.
there were insects surrounding me, I would be freaking out.
Right.
But I wasn't at all. And then also, this and all of the other experiences I've had were all in slow motion. It
Mhm.
was almost like time stood still, and I could see the dragonflies flying down the block and coming back
Mhm.
and circling me. They
Mhm.
they were so slow. I could see the veins in the wings, the iridescent
Mhm.
colors, the different sizes, which I equated to babies and toddlers and teenagers and grandparents. And I just had this feeling I was surrounded by love, and that even though I was making a big transition, and
Mhm.
dragonflies actually signify transition.
Never knew
Um,
that. Okay.
yeah, they're big into transformation in many different cultures,
Okay.
and that is what I was going through.
Mhm.
And luckily, about three-quarters of the way through this unbelievable sign or synchronistic experience, I started to come out of that, and I knew to pull out my cell phone and videotape hundreds of dragonflies circling me so I could have
Mhm.
like a tangible human real life, evidence
Mhm.
proof that I experienced this. But then I just was opened up to being aware when I would find pennies. It wasn't just like, I've heard people say, oh, when you find a penny, it's good luck or it means something. And, I never thought too much of that until every single penny I found was the birth year of the first child that was alienated from me.
Really?
Every single penny, had that birth year. And then
Wow.
it happened so many times that I couldn't just chalk it up to coincidence.
Hmm.
And so now looking at coins, when I find them, it's a little different than before when I'd be like, oh, that's cool, I found a penny.
Mm-hmm.
But there are signs in our universe. I believe that if we take the time to pay attention, people are brought into our lives, prayers are answered.
Mm-hmm.
We find ourselves in situations that
Mm-hmm.
we think, wow, we shouldn't have been able to survive that, but we did.
Right.
And so that's what I mean by signs and synchronicities from the universe.
Do you think that's almost like an intuition?
I think
Or is
it
it different in your
involves
opinion?
intuition. I think that
Okay.
our gut intuition is definitely a sign, and
Okay.
a sign that we often ignore, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Because, if something doesn't feel right in your gut, like it probably isn't right.
Right.
And you need to pay attention to that inner voice that is
Mm-hmm.
telling you. And some people believe it's an angel, your higher self, God, or if you don't have those beliefs, it could just be your gut feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that there's reasons for that. And if you start to tune into that more,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find answers to questions, and it will kind of guide you on a path that's much more productive and positive.
Do you think a lot of times when you don't go with that gut feeling, when you feel like something is a little off, that a lot of times the outcome is not advantageous for us?
Oh my gosh, I'm living proof of that.
I know me. I feel
I
that way.
I ignored red flags for so long.
Mhm.
And, yes, with my research, I understand I was trauma bonded. I understand that I had some intergenerational family stuff that was patterns I was playing out. I understand projection more. I understand gaslighting. So I can, you know, intellectually come up with reasons why I didn't follow those gut feelings. And
Mhm.
if I really did follow them right away, I wouldn't have had two beautiful children,
Right.
because I
Okay.
never would have married the type of individual that I ended up being with. I mean,
Mhm.
you know, um, our values are so very different.
But when you think back, did you have any more of those people in your life when you were younger, dating prior to being married? Did you feel as if you attracted those type people along the way as well that led to the husband, the ex-husband?
Yes, yes, definitely.
Okay.
And there were other relationships that
Mhm.
didn't weren't as healthy as I thought they were.
Right.
I just was seeking the American dream. I wanted to get married and have
The
children and live happily
house.
ever after.
Have the house, the great
Have the house.
job.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and and the picket fence and the whole
Mhm.
quintessential thing.
Mhm.
Because that's really what I believed success was. And
Exactly.
and I'm sure that's what drove me to have a successful career or pursue my education and that type of
Mhm.
thing, because I wanted that whole package deal. But I actually had to realize that a very close friend, I would consider my childhood best friend,
Mhm.
was not who I thought she was. And
Mm.
so even later on, even after the divorce, and I'm doing all this inner work and I'm really trying to analyze my relationships with people, I'm
Mhm.
realizing the mask is slipping on some other people, and
I was
that
gonna
my
say, mhm.
that my
Other
values were
relationships,
not
yeah.
resonating, and I realized that this best friend lied to me on
Mm.
so many occasions with so many different things, contributed to the alienation. Really what was doing a lot of that gaslighting and controlling manipulation and
Mhm.
and belittling, the put downs and all of
Right.
that. I realized I was just assuming, because I knew this person from when we were 5 years old,
Right. She
and
had to
that
be sincere and genuine.
yeah, but
Yeah.
oh, I had to learn the hard way that it was the healthiest thing for me to step back from that relationship, like, completely. I didn't even, for someone who normally likes to talk things out and come to a
Right.
common ground and understanding, I knew with this person that I was not dealing with someone who was honest. In fact, I knew even in junior high and high school, I know of so many lies that she told, and
That
betrayal,
intuition.
and
Yeah.
that betrayal for so
Mm-hmm.
many other people. But I just
Mm-hmm.
didn't think she would do that to me.
To you. Did you
And
have a subliminal like somewhere in your head, like, I wonder, or you just never thought that she would do anything, or you just didn't want to admit
I
it if you think back
I
retrospectively?
I just don't think I acknowledged it at all on any
Mm.
level
Okay.
until I had to,
Okay.
until it was so crystal clear,
Mm.
that I didn't have any choice but to
Okay.
acknowledge it. And then I had the choice I did have was, do I want to just go along status quo, even though I know this person's
Which
dishonest?
is
And,
a no. That's a
you know,
big no.
it's a big no one for me.
It's a
It's
big
no,
no.
right.
No
And
status quo. No.
right. And so I made the choice, and it was extremely painful, and I've had to kind of do the same with a few family members. And that's
I was
very painful.
I was gonna ask you, do you think, I can't remember, because I'm just kind of speaking along with you. Do you, if that enlightening came with your friend, was before or after the relationship started to dissolve with your ex-husband?
Oh, it was after. It was after.
Okay, so my
Yeah.
question is, do you think that relationship kind of unraveling with the ex-husband started kind of taking your blinders off to all the other relationships that
Yeah,
followed?
definitely, definitely.
Okay.
And it was just like peeling the layers of the onion. It was
Yeah.
little by little, because it's, if it was all given to us at one fell
Mm-hmm.
swoop, that would be extremely overwhelming. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, the losses were significant. And luckily I got to a point where I was stronger in
Mm-hmm.
who I was. Still on this journey. I think it's going to
Mm-hmm.
be a lifelong journey,
Oh,
but
absolutely.
then I
Mm-hmm.
was able to put some of the pieces together and realize that, um, there are very the that really my ex-husband and my best friend are cut from the same cloth in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And and
Yeah.
then, you
I'm
know,
sure.
right. And then I had to go back and look at why I allowed that, why I attracted that,
Mm-hmm.
why I stayed in something. But at the same time, not be too hard on myself, and
Right.
realize that, we our eyes are opened up little by little with things. And it's part of the journey.
Exactly. My grandmother always said, "Baby, you're never too old to learn."
Yeah.
That was always one of her sayings, and as a kid, I didn't understand what she meant by that, but I absolutely do. I always say that you have to learn how to be in the best relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
That has to be the best relationship. Before you can give anyone anything else of you, you have to be in a very good relationship and love the skin that you're in. And it kind of dumps into your other relationships as well.
Definitely, definitely it
And
does.
setting standards and not allowing people to certain boundaries can be moved, but most of them are in place, and there's no exception, because people only do and treat you the way you allow them to.
Right.
I learned that as a young kid. I'm a very nice person, but as I told you when you and I were speaking earlier, and I was like, "Oh, Dr. Marni, I don't know how you're so relaxed." I get so frazzled, and I'm like, because I want things to go as it should all the time, and it doesn't.
No, it
And
doesn't.
but when it comes to me and my heart and how people treat me, I'm very stern about that. And matter of fact, I don't allow people
Right.
to
And
go
you're
but so
taking
far.
care of yourself. You're looking out for
Exactly.
yourself, and being
Mm-hmm.
more discerning about who you let in your life,
Absolutely.
and then who you keep in your life. And so you have to
Yeah.
be okay that your circle has gotten smaller and smaller, but it's more
Mm-hmm.
authentic. And
Oh,
I would rather
absolutely.
be in authentic relationships, in real, true,
Mm-hmm.
authentic relationships, than living a lie and being surrounded by other people.
Exactly. I have one, when you said you had the person that you had to let go. I have one dear friend. She's my best friend and has been forever and ever and ever and ever. Since we were actually high school for us, and we are still very close to this day. Do we always agree? No, but you have to agree to disagree. But we're
Mhm.
always respectful. And I'm pretty strong-willed, so I kind of make things happen with the help of the Lord. I make things happen the way I want them to be. But I do have boundaries, and I don't allow anyone. I've been married almost 30 years in January, and
Oh, congratulations.
thank you. And
Mhm.
I just kind of have these things in place. Even with my husband, I love him to death, but hey, I love me too,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
the key. loving me and not compromising that for anyone,
Right.
you know.
And when you are stronger in your sense of self, and
Mm-hmm.
you can project that out to the world, and you will attract more like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I did make a big change. I moved from the Chicago suburbs when I retired
Okay.
out to the Caribbean where I live. And I've been out here for 3.5 years, and I am living a
That's why you're
beautiful
so nice and tan then.
life. Yeah, well, I don't try. I don't try. It's just
It just happens.
it just happens when you're swimming in the ocean every day,
Oh,
or
well, don't rub it in. Don't
yeah,
rub it in.
sorry, but um, but I feel like I could be happy wherever I landed. I'm
Exactly.
glad I'm in the Caribbean, and I'm spending my days with a wonderful life partner, and
Oh,
he and I
great.
just have a wonderful connection, and it's based on honesty,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a spiritual foundation to our
Which is
connection,
key.
and there's just a lot of mutual respect.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, tell me about your books because I understand these signs, the universe's signs, is what led you to becoming an author, correct? Oh, I hope we don't have any more. I see you freezing a little, but I think we're okay.
Oh,
But
okay.
tell me a little bit about your book because that kind of what me kind of help facilitate that, right?
Right. Well, sure. The first book, is my award-winning spiritual fiction, God Came to My
Uh
Garage
huh.
Sale. And it was
Yes.
endorsed by James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy. It
Mm-hmm.
is, it won numerous awards. It actually is a book club favorite, and it might even become a movie.
Really,
So that is, yeah. So that was my first
I want to
first
come to
book.
the
And even though it's
premiere.
yeah, okay. Well, even though it's spiritual fiction, it
Uh
is
huh.
inspired by true events that happen, these
I was
spiritual
going to ask you
miracles.
about that.
Yeah. That's,
Okay.
I of course, everything didn't happen at one weekend garage sale.
Right.
It was over a period of time, but I wanted to write it in a story that would reach an audience that might not normally pick up a book on spirituality.
Gotcha.
So anyway, that has done very well. And then my 5 book series, True Deceit, False Love, just
Mhm.
creatively addresses
Mhm.
domestic violence, narcissistic abuse, parental alienation, and intergenerational family trauma. So there's poetry and word search and survivors workbook. And it's a another tool that people can use when they're trying to figure out what they've been through, and if they think they might resonate with some of the issues that I write about.
Mhm. Do you think that this will be because I assume the writing is therapy for you, correct?
Yeah.
So this would be something like a lifelong journey of inputting your feelings and emotion into different books. Do you think you'll ever write a book that is like a biography or anything direct, or you just kind of enjoy writing fiction?
No, the God Came to My Garage Sale is the fiction. The True
Mhm.
Deceit, False Love, um you know is not an autobiographical account by any
Okay.
means. It
Okay.
really is bringing awareness to terminology, phrases,
Gotcha.
understanding the emotional, roller coaster that you go through from many different perspectives. So it's written from even an abuser's perspective, or a victim,
Mm.
or a child, or a grandparent. And so I'm not really interested in writing autobiographical works.
Okay.
I do have a 6th book in the True Deceit, False Love series that I'm finishing up, and that
Okay.
will come out this next year. But I am so excited that this new year, I'm going to be focusing on some other writing projects that are
Okay.
very, very different. And I just feel like as I'm continuing to grow and evolve,
Mhm.
my interests continue to grow and evolve. And so I've got some exciting projects on the horizon that I'll be focusing on.
Do you think, being that you're an award-winning author, I might say, do you think that when writing fiction, your stories can just take any type of direction your mind wants it to take, so it makes it more broad on the things you can speak about and incorporate into your book for
Yeah,
you?
well, definitely. When I wrote that book, I was still in a state of fear and shock after what I had
Mhm.
gone through. And,
Mhm.
um, just decided that this was the route that I wanted to go,
Right.
to bring awareness to signs and synchronicities. Actually, in that first book, I don't mention anything about domestic abuse,
Okay.
just that the character lost everything, had a garage sale, and miracles happened.
Okay.
So, and then I went on to take a couple classes
Mm-hmm.
at the university level in writing, and specifically writing fiction, and realized that's not what I like to do. I
Okay.
really don't think that I'm going to write any more fiction books, and that
Okay.
isn't the route I wanted to go. And um and so I think it just kind of, I love the opportunity to be able to kind of get your emotions and thoughts and experiences out of your body and onto a
Mm-hmm.
page. And,
Right.
and writing is and always has been a lot of fun for me.
Okay.
Um, and it's a safe activity to do, in that you could write out, you know, a situation that you're struggling with, and then you can set it down and come back to it at a later time and revise it, and add more to it, or take some
Mm-hmm.
things out. And I think I love that kind of freedom to be able to get your thoughts down. And that's been really exciting. Like, I've been asked to write numerous articles for magazines, and
Mm-hmm.
they have like a structure of so many words, or what is the topic. And that's actually a lot of fun too, to try to take a very long essay and then whittle it down to just the bare necessities to get a
Mm-hmm.
message across. I mean, it's a lot of fun for me, but I'm a teacher. I like this kind
Right.
of thing. Yeah.
Well, for the average person who, they're not a teacher or anything of that nature, they're just, everyday person. Um, do you think that it's imperative to find an outlet outside of just jotting notes down when you're going through different things, to find an outlet, something to kind of help you deal with and get away from your normal everyday, to kind of help pull you through and get your mind off of what is your actual reality? Do you think
Yes.
it's
And
good
I,
to
I
find
think,
out a different
yeah, I
outlet?
think that you definitely need to have an outlet, and find what you're passionate about, what you're
Mhm.
interested in. And that looks very different for different people. I mean,
Exactly.
I found that writing was very healing for me. And
Mhm.
I, you know, one of the books, the volumes in that series, is a survivor's workbook that involves writing acrostic poetry, if
Mhm.
someone finds that that is helpful for them.
Mhm.
There are people that, like, for example, Tracy A. Malone, she has narcissist abuse support website and programs. She has a whole array of journals with journal prompts for people that need even more structure than just grabbing, a spiral notebook and writing down their thoughts, where they are,
Mhm.
there's questions to make you think about things. And so I would
Mhm.
check out Tracy's journals that she has on her website, narcissist abuse support. But, you know, outlets can look very different for people. Some people like to garden. Some people like to
Mhm.
work on cars. Some
Right.
people like to, um, exercise.
I like to do the podcast thing.
Yeah, you do the podcasting. I mean, people can find all sorts of ways
Mhm.
that they can, you know, heal, continue to grow, or
It
or take a
helps.
break from the heavy,
Mhm.
and follow your passions, and then you have a more well-rounded existence.
I agree. I know for me, when I started doing the podcast, my daughter and I had talked about it many times, and I was like, that may be a way for me to kind of get my mind off of just thinking about everything, because as a
Sure.
parent, you always want to be there and protect your children. So you kind of
Mhm.
feel like mentally you're going, just being harassed sometimes when things are just out of your control and something negative happens. So I started doing the podcast, and I meet so many wonderful people like you, and among other people that have been on the show. And it helps because it keeps my mind. And not to mention, I have a 7-year-old that I'm raising, starting all over
Wow.
again. That keeps
Yeah,
me
yep.
exceptionally busy. So I do think keeping yourself busy and involved in something that you're passionate about absolutely helps.
Definitely. And then the whole connection with other people,
Oh
um,
yeah.
we
It's like,
find like with
yeah.
these podcasts, it's been so much fun for me as well
Yeah.
as a guest because I'm meeting people from all over the world and so
Mhm.
many that I resonate with. And then it kind of gives you the understanding that we are more alike in many ways than we are
Mhm.
different. And
Mhm.
that there are
Mhm.
others that are going through similar things and that we're not so alone.
Right. So when you actually, let me ask you this, just digress just a little bit before
Sure.
we wrap up. In your book, God Came to My Garage Sale. You had a lot of different experiences and people that you met, of course, like a normal garage sale, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you sold a lot of things. Did you end up feeling as if you were letting go of the past when you were getting rid of some of these things and meeting new people?
Yes, I was, and some things it was hard to get rid of because
Hmm.
well, you spent a lot of money for something, or there
Right.
could be emotional attachments to things.
Hmm.
You might have wanted to save something for some future utility, or to hand
Right.
down, to pass
Hmm.
along, but in some ways, what I was the whole process for me looking back at this garage sale was letting go of some of my hopes and dreams that were of a false reality. and
Mm.
and so understanding that made it easier in some ways to downsize, to realize that
Gotcha.
it's not the stuff that's important, it's the emotional attachments to
Hmm.
the things. And I was holding on to things
Yeah.
because I was thinking of the future and
Right.
thinking of what I wanted to be, and so it was a therapeutic experience. I had
Hmm.
had many garage sales, um, and only a couple after that one significant garage sale, but you know, it's it's part of letting go of all sorts of things, and in
Hmm.
some ways it is the emotional attachments to things that maybe aren't really real. They're just in your
And
head.
and they're chains.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're actually chains. They actually are
Right.
holding us back. And sometimes just letting go and starting over is just not so bad after all.
Right. Right.
You
No, no,
know?
I'm thrilled that I got to have the opportunity to start a whole new life in the Caribbean.
Mhm. Oh, I bet. I bet
Yeah.
you are. I've
Yeah.
never been there, but I know it. I've always heard it was nice. I'm scary. I've never been on a plane, maybe a boat one
Oh,
time. I gotta get out and let my haul
yeah.
down just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But well, I tell you what, I was absolutely so excited that we could finally get this interview done. And you were everything I thought. You were very down to earth and approachable. And I felt like we can kind of exchange things that help. I definitely felt as if I benefited and have a different perspective on different things, you know?
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Um, and I appreciate it. Now I know you said you have when will you know about the movie or the different
I,
things
you
that
know,
you
I
have
don't,
coming out?
it's a work in progress. So,
Okay. We just gotta stay
I,
tuned then.
right. I just, and I'm waiting, and I
Okay.
hear some things here and there, but if it's meant to be, it will
It
be.
will be. Well,
And
how can we find out more about you and stay well, my audience, I know. How can my audience find out more about your books and where to get them from and if they want to get in touch with you some sort of way?
yeah, sure. All my books are on Amazon
Okay.
and Barnes and Noble. My publisher is Balboa Press, which is a division of Hay House. And those
Okay.
books are very cool, like self-help and spiritual books.
Okay.
But the best place I think would just be my website, which is the name of my first book. So
Okay.
www.godcametomygarage.com.
Okay, great. Well, I tell you, thank you again. I truly appreciated the interview and I wish you so much luck and success on
Well,
all
thank
your
you so
endeavors.
much. Well, thank you so much. Life is a beautiful thing, and once we realize what we've dealt with, and if we can get ourselves to a place of safety and happiness, we can go on to live a much more blessed life.
I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Well, good luck, and I will definitely be in touch. And thank
Sounds
you.
good. Yeah,
All
take
right.
care.
You too.